Welcome to Expat Hoops, the podcast where we interview the best professional basketball players who have careers in pro basketball leagues outside of the U.S. I'm your host, Andy Haverman, and today we welcome Gavin Ware to the pod. The Starkville, Mississippi native stayed home to play for Mississippi State before heading overseas to start his career as a pro. He's had stops in Belgium, Germany, Japan, and an extensive period of time in France. So with that, we'd like to welcome you to the pod, Gavin. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
So we usually pick up from about the period of time that's like your college career where it's ending. At what point in time did you kind of become aware that you could play basketball professionally if it wasn't going to be necessarily in the NBA, that there was this other universe that whether it's either the G League or overseas that you could continue on? And how did you wind up essentially going down the overseas path and getting your first job in Belgium?
Well, credit to my college coach, Ben Howland, that came from UCLA. He was my collegiate coach my last year. So with him, he kind of saw that. He was like, hey, you probably can make money professionally. And, he doesn't say that too often. So he was like, I'm going to get you in touch with an agent and we're just going to go from there. So I went through the whole process of going through the Portsmouth and everything. And I kind of realized that, with this business, you kind of either have to be a spectacular player or have a big following. And it's kind of really about politics in the NBA. So I was like, if the opportunity presents itself, I would take a chance on it. But, I've found in my experience that it was more stability, being overseas. The pay may not have been like, the NBA, but I felt that the stability was there. So I was like, hey, this may be a venture that I want to tap into. And my agent was like, okay, we can go that route, try to get you in the best possible league over there in a good country and stuff. So started working with plenty of people, talking with guys that played over there that played at Mississippi State, and just try to get the whole gist of it before I actually dove into the whole overseas professional basketball player lifestyle.
So it's actually interesting that you use the term stability for somebody that's like overseas, where a lot of times, you might be having a year deal or, 1+1 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But I think that what's also kind of been alluded to with some of our past guests have been like, yeah, you might be able to pursue the NBA route, but if you're one of the last guys on the roster, that's not
Yeah.
very stable. So, I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
exactly what you're getting at, right?
Yes, because and then also with like the G League, nothing is wrong with it. It's just that you're hoping to get called up one day. And I've seen some guys that are spectacular. They will go out and score 30 every game, but still get, overshadowed by, other players when, you go overseas and, you have a good contract, you're getting good minutes, and, it may not been, that call up that you wanted, but next year, now you're going to a place where it's almost 500,000, 750, almost 1 million. So, that's why I say it's just stability. And plus you're not in that whole trade thing. And, so they try to keep you for a full year.
And not to say anything that we don't have some great cities in the U.S., but
Yeah.
you get to go overseas, and your first stop is actually in Belgium. You've played a number of years in France, but before we get to some of the great spots in France and Japan and Germany that you've been to, take us through what your first job was like in terms of when you actually are like, okay, I've sat down with the agent, we've decided we're going to go to Antwerp, play for the Giants. What was it like getting adapted to it as a first-year player, and what was your experience like there? It's a club that's actually popped up with a few of our guests,
Yeah.
so there is some familiarity there. But just take us through what that first year was like for you.
I would say you just have to adapt. You have to be open-minded, open to new things, because when I tell everybody this, when I first landed in Belgium, it's rainy and gloomy at least 60 to 75% of the time. So when I landed, I opened up the shade from the airplane. I looked out, I was like, my heart started beating fast. I was like, I'm I'm really a grown up now. Like I have to, I have to do things on my own. Maybe, I didn't know everybody else, but I was like, and it was kind of in my mind like, okay, I want to go back home. This is too far. Uh, but after I got with a little bit more, got my feet settled in, had to learn a new way of life. Uh, couldn't speak to everybody, out in public like I wanted to because the language barrier. So it was a bit of a culture shock. I just had to go along with what was being presented to me as far as like how to shop, um, how to drive, because they still drive on the same road, but the signs are different. Instead of stoplights, you have roundabouts. It's just things you have to get accustomed to. So it took about, I would say, about maybe 2 to 3 months to get adjusted off the court. Now on the court, they kind of look at you as you want to come in and be the guy. You're an American. You done went through the whole college scene. You're basically a grown up. So come in and perform as best you can. That's what you're being brought here for.
So that's interesting. One thing I will say is, there's a lot worse places you could start. So imagine looking out of that window shade and seeing a whole bunch
Yeah,
of snow.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, it was different. But as time went on, meeting other guys, because I believe you could have at least 4 to 5 international players or 5 Americans uh, on the team. So getting close with those guys, going out to places, seeing the city, okay, I was like, okay, it's not a bad city after all. I guess the airport is just very far out. So seeing everything, I was like, okay. Then traveling to Brussels, I was like, okay, this is, and then that's the thing, you don't have to worry about crime, even though they kind of like pickpocket, but that's nothing,
Yeah, it's
major
minor.
than what's happened. Yeah, than what happened in the US. So I was looking over my shoulder and stuff, and it was a guy that had already been there for like 5 plus years. He was like, bro, you don't need to do that here. It's like it's pretty safe. Even when we walk around like maybe after a club scene or we go out one night, you don't have to worry about if you see two Europeans fighting, you don't have to, worry about if shots going to be fired or anything. So just, relax, I would say still stay on, still stay alert, but it's not where you have to be, on a swivel at all times.
Right.
So
So, like we said, really great club that you went to there.
yeah,
Obviously, had some great teammates that were able to kind of take you in and say, "This is kind of how it operates here."
yeah,
So, you get your feet wet with your first overseas season. You're going to go back the next season in the 2017 season, 2017-2018, and that's where you may not have necessarily known it at that point in time, but that's where you're really going to spend a lot of your career. I mean, there might be some interruptions going to some
yeah,
other countries, but you go to France. Take us
yeah.
through your first couple seasons in France. It's with a couple different clubs, but start with the season in 2017-2018 when you get over there.
Sure. Well, I was very fortunate enough to receive, and play up until now pretty much of my career in France, because France is one of like the stable countries over there. I kind of look at it, as you know American lifestyle, but it's just a different language. Some things are different. Um, it was nice, and my second year I was in Paris, so just being in Paris, at least 15 minutes away from all the tourist attractions, it was unbelievable to say the least. Like just to be able to go from practice, to take a shower, nap, eat, and then go just walk around just any given day, see the Eiffel and stuff. It was very beautiful. So. And I just really just had to sit back and thank God and just appreciate, may not been the whole NBA setting that everybody dreams for, but this is every regular people dream about coming to these overseas countries and just laying eyes on these beautiful monuments. So it was really spectacular. I really was in awe, because it was sometimes where I would get out of practice and they was like, "Hey, let's go." eat close to the Eiffel or something. I'm like, what? Are we really doing this? So it was kind of spectacular. So
So, like you mentioned, your first France season is in Paris. Take us through
yeah.
what club it was that you played for. It's a little notable, and take us through kind of what it was like then at that point in time in 2017, 2018 as compared to, oh, I don't know, say the last year where they had a couple high level draft picks.
Yeah, so I went to it was when I played there, it was Paris Levallois. So but now it's changed to Boulogne Levallois or something like that. I'm not sure of the name now, Metropolitan, but
Yeah, Metropolitans
um
92. Yep.
when I was there, we had Boris Diaw played his last year with us. So and just watching him, learning from him, it was like, okay, now I'm getting, may not be in the NBA, but I'm getting some NBA level advice. And I think that was a really good thing. So and then just being there, learning from him, being the backup to him was like just watching him like, okay, he may be an older guy, but he still, knows the game. The game, he doesn't move too fast, which is good. He let the game come to him. And he's already played most of his years, so his IQ is on point. And he would always question, why you do this? Okay, try this. I was like, okay, I see now. I see. So and then after I left there a few years ago, then they get Victor Wembanyama, and I actually played against him. And the guy is very tall. He's very tall. Maybe, maybe slim, but he's very tall, and he makes up for that. He uses his height. He doesn't try to, hide away from it. So I think that's a really good thing. So
And that's something that we'll probably come back to in one of the expat
yeah,
extras. But for now, we're going to stick with your career. So
yeah.
you spent the first year in Paris while you were over in France. So now you're going to be heading
So
into your third season overseas,
yes,
also going to be in France. But this one is your first season with a club that you probably didn't know at the time, but was going to become a big part of your life, and it's Dijon. Take us through how you wind up there the first time, at least.
back to Dijon. Dijon is like it's kind of like the city I have here, except they have a mall. We don't have a mall here, so a small town, in a small town of Starkville, that's in Mississippi. So, but with Dijon, they have a really strong fan base. Like it may not be the ones where you see on TV with Olympiacos popping fireworks in the stands, but our fans that gym is about I think like 40 to 50 years old. So it gets very loud in there, especially when, even through ups and downs, they still, stay there the whole game. They still stay there and encourage us, after the game, they, give us a pat on the back if it didn't go our way. So they still stick behind us. They don't really boo us as you see other teams that when their team is not doing so good, they kind of boo them. We Dijon kind of stayed away from that. They still stand behind us every single chance, and I get like at least hundreds of DMs like it's okay. Next game going to be better. We still believe in you, and I really respect that out of them. So that's why after uh, being removed from the French league, that's why I came back to Dijon because the fan base was awesome.
That's what I was actually going to ask you, is because you spent that period of time in your third season, and then you've spent the last couple now with Dijon. I was wondering if that has if there was some level of familiarity the second time around as opposed to the first time around, or was it like
Oh,
that pretty much the entire way?
oh yeah. I mean, it really picked up, where, where we left off. Even though the coach was new, the city still pretty much the same. My apartment changed, as being removed for about 2 years, then coming back. But pretty much the city was the same. The fans were still there. They were very excited now that I signed a 1+1. So they was like, okay, we get to have you for possibly 2 years. We're gonna enjoy this while we can. So and I really enjoyed myself. I already knew the city, so and they already had my previous paperwork, so I didn't have to. You know, in the first few days, you at least spend a week to sign off. You know, on stuff to get your car, get your apartment and stuff. But mine took a day. So yeah, I mean, really less than a day, really half a day. So it took a day, got all the stuff because they, you know, like I said, we just picked up where we left off.
So we'll come back to that just a little bit, but obviously it's very nice to be able to come back to a familiar spot overseas.
Yeah,
So from that first season in Dijon is now the end of your third season overseas, and you actually kind of you're sticking in Western Europe pretty much your entire career, except for
yeah,
this next spot in Japan.
yeah,
How'd you wind up in Japan? Usually, in our experience and talking to people, agents are usually more connected in certain spots. So going from Western
yeah.
Europe to Japan is quite the leap. How'd you get over there?
So that was kind of my decision. As I was talking with my agent, I was like, I want to see how high my ceiling is. I appreciate the French lifestyle, the stability, and everything, but I want to, let's try, a different league. And my teammates was like, don't leave. We got big things in store. But I felt that it was just time for me to try to take on, a new challenge. And they presented. So, what about the Asian league? And then you have to also understand that um, France. They made it law that everybody across the board has to pay taxes. So, and you kind of seen that the first year there, I was in Dijon, which was my third year professional. The taxes hit, and I mean, it was cutting guys' checks in half. So that was another thing that was like, yeah, they're offering the same money, no taxes. So I was like, let's, go over there and see, what it's like. But I wasn't really thinking about that at the point because I was still young and I wasn't really money motivated. It was still, all about the passion, and it still is. But I was like, let's see the ceiling. Let's see how we can go. Let's try a different thing, And that was like, well, what about Japan? Like Asia, that may be something. I kind of got like a little backlash. It was like, no, 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 try to still work your way up, try to get to that Euro League level. But I was like, it never hurts to, you know, I would say dip your toe. They don't say put all your eggs in one basket. So it's like let's try to put an egg over in the Asian League. So if I do come back, I'll still be able to, they still remember me, and I'll see if I can still go back towards the end of my career. And that's what most guys do. They go to the Asian League towards the end of their career because they paying the big bucks. So
That and I was going to say some of the people that we've talked to that are playing in Japan now really have positive things to say about it, having played in Europe, and they've actually said that maybe money isn't quite as good as it used to be in Europe, at least in their personal experience, but Japan has been. Um, but that also leads to another interesting point because the period of time that you're in Japan is 2019 to 2020, and COVID
yeah,
happens. Everybody's got
man.
a COVID story, but you're kind of in a unique spot. So take us through what your COVID experience was like,
Oh,
kind of like when it became like on your radar and you're like, all right, so what's going on with this? And at what point in time is it time to go home?
so my COVID story was when it first started. I think we received the news about the whole COVID pandemic at least about I say 2 months before the U.S. Received information about it. So as they're like everybody's from China coming over, and you could see it. Like we couldn't get a hotel for games. Sometime we would have to stay in the city outside and get a hotel because a lot of Chinese were moving to Japan to try to get away from COVID-19, and we still was able to play a few more games, but then guys start going down with COVID, so they kind of stopped our league for about like maybe 2 weeks, and then I think we played like two more games, and then that's when they cut it out. So we're practicing for about another just 2 weeks, not knowing if we're going to play, they're just saying stay ready. And, guys are less motivated now. Practice is not what it used to be. Um, because we're short on guys getting COVID. And this one that was doing the temperature. If you were 1 degree over, just go back to the apartment. So that happened to me at least a few times. And being in Japan away from family, you had to stay in your apartment, and they would bring you your groceries and stuff. So Japan, the living quarters are kind of pretty small compared to American. So a big guy being in those small quarters, it was like a bull in a china shop, let me say. Um, so, and then Trump was deciding that he was hinting at closing the borders. So then the front office contacted me and was like, "How do you feel about this? Do you want to go home?" And everything. I was like, "Okay, well, I'll just take my chance and just go home, be with my family, hunker down with them, and be with them." So, which was, I kind of really wanted to stay because the thing was, I had to terminate the contract. So I left at least about $30,000-$40,000 on the table for the last 2 months. So, and that was like, if they start the league back up, you can come back and we'll, pay you for their last thing. But since teams over there are sponsored by companies, it was like, we're going to have to terminate your contract. And I was like, oh, that sucks. But, from the contract that I received, I had, gained enough cushion in order to, be at home with my family. So after they said that, I'm packing up. So I was like, let me take one last trip, with my mask on, all covered up. Let me take one last trip downtown and, probably grab a place from this famous Japanese spot in town and stuff, sushi, all type of Japanese cuisine. And when I got off the little transit, I mean, it was a lot of people like COVID doesn't even exist. I was like, y'all know it's COVID going on, right? So when I seen that and I just seen crowds in, like, I try to stay away from crowds, so I kind of walk out to the side. I mean, it was flooded. So I was like, yeah, let's stop at, this little restaurant right here, grab something to go and head back because walking through that crowd, I could just see the fog. Like, nah, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna take that chance. And then having to go through the whole thing of being on the plane sick and coughing and stuff. No, I didn't want to take that chance. So, um, I was kind of, surprised that, things hadn't shut down, in Japan, given that China was so close and COVID was like a stone's throw away. So, but when I came home, and we're on the highway, and we have a highway that you come in and you can oversee like the main street. And I mean, it's some lights are turned off, businesses lights it wasn't lit up, because we would stay open till like business could stay open till like 2. But I mean, it was like 8:30 getting back, and I mean, Walmart was closed, everything was closed. I'm like, oh, they're not playing. They're not playing. I really had to cook that last night because I wanted to go to a restaurant that I enjoy, like a soul food restaurant. Everything is closed. It was like, you're gonna have to get out these vegetables and chicken and make dinner for yourself. So, and that was very surprising. Then that's when it really hit me like we aren't even in the meat and potatoes of COVID, and we're treating it like it didn't just took over. But the Japanese they just chilling. So I was like, yeah, I think it was time for me to get away from there and just be with my family.
Thanks to SeatGeek for sponsoring Expat Hoops. We recently became a brand ambassador for them. SeatGeek is a ticket app that takes the confusion out of buying tickets. They offer a 0 to 10 score on each ticket to know if you're getting a good or a bad deal. Green means good, red means bad. You get the idea. It's a really easy way to get tickets to events. Plus, our viewers get $20 off their first ticket purchase with the Expat Hoops code. Click the link in the description to download the app. Remember the code Expat Hoops, EXPATHOOPS, all one word. to save yourself $20 off your first ticket purchase with SeatGeek. We have merch. Head over to the Expat Hoops store where you'll find t-shirts, hoodies, masks, coffee mugs, pint glasses, and more.
It's one of many ways you can show support for the podcast, so head over there and pick up some merch. That link below is in the video description, or you can head over to our website, expathoops.com, and click merch. We offer a couple of different Expat Hoops logos, and we have men's, women's, and kids sizes, so you can get something for everyone.
And so you do go home, I'm sure there's probably some, even back home with family, I'm sure you had to try to stay in shape and everything. But August of that year, August 2020, I think is when you signed your contract with Wurzburg to go to Germany. I think that wasn't for you to play the full season, but if you could take us through that in terms of getting back after COVID, what was your thought process and what led you to Germany?
So I returned from Japan March 24th. So from March, April, May, June, July, August, probably a little bit of September. Then I signed with the Wurzburg, but it was only because their big man was injured and they just needed someone for like preseason and a few games. So, and as you can tell, not being workout facilities were closed and stuff. So I had to really, it was a few days where you'll see me on the sidewalk just doing push-ups, running, doing high knees and stuff, just staying in shape anywhere I could outside with nature, So if I find a hill, I'll be there at 6 a.m., running the hill, have plates that I, had in my warehouse, running with those because everything was closed. So I had to get creative. Even my girlfriend, she would time me on my sprints as we're running in the field. And, so it was one of those old Rocky moments. So, I had to really, as they say, get it out the mud. I really had to do that. So, just trying to find my way and everything, it was really difficult. So when I finally got a chance to go to Wurzburg, I was like, okay, now we're back at it. I get a good facility and everything. But with that team, they had a lot of young guys that like to run up and down. And, me, a big man, always come in, at weight or a little underweight. But, with them being able to run like that, I'm more of a half-court guy that post up, direct, slow movements, gives what the defense is giving me. And that's how I've been able to be an elite scorer. But in this situation, they felt that they needed a big man to just get up and down with the young crew they had, which was understandable. I wished them well, went home, and then that's when Gravellines came.
And so this is now going to be your third French team and going to be the last one that last different one that you play for because you go back to Dijon. Yeah. So take us through what playing for Gravellines was like now that you've had the experience playing for Paris and for Dijon at this point in time. What was it like playing for Gravellines?
So playing for Gravellines was a humbling experience because there is nothing up there. It's very quiet. It's like a little coastal community, So and then plus it was still during COVID, so we're playing with no fans, no business open up. I think in that city we only had a McDonald's and like a somewhat like a somewhat like a Walmart, but on a more French scale. So those were the only two like businesses for like Americans that we knew about. If you wanted other stuff like the Nike outlet or a mall or something, you had to go 15 miles or minutes each way to Dunkirk, which is in the movie they made a movie about it, Dunkirk, or Calais, which is either way. So Calais that's the last stop before you can go to London. So you had to go either way to get American food like KFC, Subway, stuff like that, or find a nice French restaurants because everything Gravellines was closed at the time. So, but they did have a beach, which I do like, coastal city. So I did like the beach and everything. Went there a lot, spent just a lot of my time walking around, and it actually kept me in great shape because since I didn't have nothing to do, I always stayed in the gym or I always stayed, walking the beach. So that kept me up and moving, burning calories. So I probably was the slimmest I ever been when I went to Gavin Wings.
And like we said earlier, you spent your last 2 seasons here in Dijon again, and it was easy to pick back up. But if you could kind of take us through what it's been like looking back on it now. You have an Instagram post that's pretty current, thanking the fans. But now that you've actually completed essentially 3 seasons there, maybe not necessarily continuous, but 3 seasons there. If you could look back on your career in Dijon specifically, and then kind of like what you're looking for next.
I really had to give that message because the things that people, in the city off the court that was doing for me, the things that were helping me out with was just, I was like, man, thank you, because me on my own, it would have went a whole nother different way. So, and that's the thing, like with smaller cities, they don't necessarily have airports. So you have to try to figure out a way you can get your family in while you're not, while you're not practicing or playing, because it's mandatory. You have to be there at practice, and you can't be like, "Hey, coach, I need to go pick up my family." They like, we probably could get somebody, and family has to fly in from Paris, so that's about 3 hours away from Dijon, and my girlfriend at the time, we have a 2-year-old now, so I wasn't feeling comfortable about her taking the train with all that luggage, car seat, stroller, and stuff. So we had to have people from the staff drive all the way up to Paris. And I was like, man, that is unbelievable that they would do something like that, for me. So, and the fans, they always gave us gifts, clothes for the baby, toys and stuff that they would give us. For my girlfriend's birthday, they booked us stuff for at restaurants that would take literally like a month to get a reservation and stuff. So they was helping us out a lot. And my teammates, sometimes you have teammates where y'all are friends because of work. But with the guys, I mean, after every game, we're together, we're watching the game, talking to each other about what each other can do, so it was a very close bond, and I thank them for that. And with my coaches, they stayed on me, helped me out a lot, changed the way I looked at the game, changed the way I moved and everything. So I had to give a lot of credit to them because they made it easier, especially my teammates. They made it easier to, want to come in, you know, for a whole week of practice and, you know, tough games that, we'll lose 2 in a row, but, we'll always have jokes and stuff that we can rely on each other in order to build back up the confidence. And you kind of saw that, we'll lose 2, 3 games, 4 at the most, but then come back strong and win 3 or about 5 at the most. So I just have to give credit to all those people who helped me along the way, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, everything. I just wanted to give credit to them.
And so, what do you think is next, or what would you like to, if you can control your destiny, where are you going next?
So I haven't posted it yet, so this will be like the official announcement. But I've signed 2 years to go back to Japan, headed back to Japan to a team that we played against, which I was with Kumamoto Volters. So now I'll be playing with Fukuoka Rising Zephyrs. So I'll be with them now for 2 years. The deal was unbelievable. The coach asked for me personally, so I was like, let's go. They found ways to accommodate my family and everything. So car and stuff, because in Japan they drive on the other side of the road. So you have like a chauffeur, translator slash. So that's what I had. Last time I was like, "Hey, I'm making such good money. They didn't give me a car," but I kind of understood because you probably training to drive on the other side. Like it's a culture shock, within itself, going over there. So the deal was unbelievable. I was like, yeah, let's take this. And plus, I was flourishing in the Asian League. I was doing really well. So with my stats, so I was like, why not? I think this would be a good chance. The culture is nice, it's clean. The air, 50-50, but I was like, it's clean, it's nice. People are nice. They kind of stare at you, because you're like Shaq, you know, there. So and you're different ethnicity, so they're gonna stare, which I kind of it was kind of normal to be after a while. So, but yeah, I think these next 2 years will really set the tone of where I stand, because I turned 30 October 19th. So this will kind of see where I stand, in the second half of my career. So I really want to test that water out again because I really didn't those last 2 months that I didn't get a chance to follow through. I really wanted to give it my all. So because I was in the B2 league, which is second division, and I wanted to go to B1 because they were giving out $1 million contracts to international players. So I was like, hey, that wouldn't hurt. So when those 2 years in, I was kind of a little sad. I was like, I want to finish the season because those last 2 months plus playoffs is where you see me shine. So I was like, why not, running back? And then when they offered the 2 years with me having a daughter, now I have to think about, there's still a passion there, but now I have to think about stability now because I have a daughter and, lights and stuff aren't going to pay itself. So, that's something you have to keep in mind. So when they offered a 2-year deal, good contract, was able to accommodate my family and stuff, try to get them visas so they can stay more than the 90-day threshold. I was like, okay, maybe this could work. So that's where I'll be headed.
Well, that's great news. Congratulations. And I'm happy
Yes,
to be breaking news on the podcast, but also some really great news for you. So congratulations on that. And we will be sure to follow along with not only the next 2 years of your career, but however long you decide to keep playing. Thanks for listening to another episode of Expat Hoops. Just a reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notifications so you're alerted anytime we have new content. If you're an audio pod listener, be sure to head over to YouTube. Check out the Expat Extras you can find exclusively on YouTube. We're going to get into some with Gavin now. Gavin, thank you so much for your time on the podcast and congratulations on your new contract.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciated my time, letting people know how it works overseas, even if it's college guys or guys that are curious about the overseas life. I'm glad they can tune into this podcast and really, get the details about, how it works. So I appreciate you having me and letting me explain and, talk about my experience and everything. So I appreciate that.
Hello, and thanks for watching. Be sure to give the video a like, and you can watch more videos over here. You can also click subscribe over here, so you're notified when we have new content here on Expat Hoops.